4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed, the television edition for Wednesday. Oh, I'm getting an echo because I have the volume on this turned up. There we go. Hi. Let's try that again. Sorry about that. You never know. It's live television, ladies and gentlemen. Well, unless you're watching this later on demand, which you can do. You can watch all the programming anytime you want to, really, at IPMNation.com. But if you're watching this live, well, whether you're watching it live or watching it later, you heard the echo. But we are here at the QCE News Studio. And by the way, for the record, what just happened was completely my own fault and not the fault of our...
this was the fault of our engineer.
Okay, now what just happened, that was the fault of Glenn R.J. Willett.
We have a short cord.
The first thing that happened was not, but the second thing definitely was.
Short cord.
Glenn unplugged... Please, Glenn, I'm a little sensitive about short cord comments. I am Irish. But welcome to the show tonight. All kinds of pandemonium here. And yet it's just myself and Glenn R.J. Willett here in the QCE News Studio. But thanks for joining me. Glenn will be sitting down with us in a moment. Glenn is drinking Powerade Advanced Electrolyte System.
No, I'm not.
This isn't yours?
I reuse my bottles.
Oh, what's in it, Glenn? Or can you tell us?
It's homemade iced tea.
Oh, very good. Homemade iced tea.
It's green tea with some antioxidants.
Oh, all right. So at one point, Glenn was drinking Powerade sports drink vitamins.
This is much better than Powerade.
I am drinking Diet Coke. I do not advocate Diet Coke. I actually think it's kind of disgusting. But
so why do you drink it then?
Well, here's what happened, Glenn R.J. Willett. So I get done rock, paper, hand grenades with my co-host, the Honorable Gary S. Hopper.
Yeah.
That is on every Wednesday from 6 to 7 Eastern. And I go to the Subway across the street, and that's all they had for diet soda that I was interested in drinking.
Really?
And well, I'm having a strange hair day. I'm trying to fix my hair a little bit. My hair
it's the humidity.
Blame
it on the humidity.
Tell you what, though, I love this weather. I like the heat. Depending on where you're watching us from, it actually, from looking at the weather, it looks like it's hot pretty much everywhere.
It's about 100 degrees with the humidity right now, and it'll be about 102 to 105 tomorrow.
I love it. I love the heat. Bring on the heat. I don't even mind the humidity, really. A dry heat's always better, but humidity's okay, too. I like to sweat. It's good for you.
Maybe good for you, but it's not good for those who have asthma.
Oh, I don't have asthma.
Well,
so
I do, and there are a lot of people that do.
I know, Glenn, but you have to understand. I mean, I'm very self-absorbed. If it doesn't directly affect me, it's hard for me to even...
Don't believe him. He doesn't have asthma, but he has allergies. Or something similar because his nose has been running all night. So don't tell me that this is not affecting you one way or another.
I better go catch it. It's true. I did have quite the allergy attack before we went on the show. The phlegm was flying fast and furious.
I had to get away.
Yes, I almost sneezed right on Glenn. So we are sans Chris Rose tonight. It's just Glenn and myself. Chris was busy, so not able to make it tonight. But
so, Chris, are you enjoying the air conditioning on your couch?
Do you think that's where he really is?
I don't know. I'm just kidding you. You know that, Chris.
Yes. Well, he could be.
He has a life too, you know.
He does. Yes. I will be docking his pay for not being here tonight.
You will.
But,
wow.
Well, it's in the contract.
And how often do you pay?
I haven't paid him yet.
I haven't received my check yet.
Well, as you know, at the end of every show, I write each of you an IOU.
Really?
And I have no intention of ever honoring them.
And what's it worth? Or is it supposed to be worth?
It's supposed to be worth $1. And I don't have any cash on me again this week. Sorry. I use my debit card for everything. I can't pay you.
Well, we'll have to get you a debit machine, ATM machine over here then.
Really?
Yeah, I have to talk to the landlord.
Oh, but then I gotta pay fees. Oh,
it's not my fault.
Can't win.
Can't win, huh?
Can't win. Oh. So, well, we'll get into it in a moment. But Glenn, did you have anything specific that you wanted to discuss tonight before we? I do have a few things here, but
I just want to say that 5 of us spent the day on Saturday. We left at 7 a.m. in the morning and got back here at about 1 o'clock the following day, Sunday morning. a.m. and we spent we recorded 5 concerts, 6 hours of concerts,
And this was in Providence.
In Providence, Rhode Island, and we televised or taped 2 hours of parade, and the parade will be on by the end of tomorrow. I've got three-quarters of it already done. It'll be finished tonight.
And what parade was it, Glenn?
It was Providence, Rhode Island's Gay Pride.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have a gay pride here in New Hampshire. I guess we're supposed to be a progressive state, and we're allowed to marry, but we're not allowed to march. I mean, it's...
now tell me, is it...
the last parade we had that allowed us, and we did from Concord to Manchester, was it was back in '98. There was about 1,000 people marching, and there were 200 people on the religious right that were on the side with these signs that they're all going to go to hell. And
of course,
and the city swore never again. And guess what? They've never allowed it again to this day.
Yes. Well, they're just looking out for you, Glenn. They don't want you to go to hell.
Really?
Yeah, that's...
You know, how many of these people that are married to their wives and they cheat on them, okay? Or how many of them are swindlers and they steal from people?
Mm-hmm.
You know, people should think twice before throwing rocks.
Well,
because they're going to be judged by the same person who's going to judge, same character who's going to judge me up in the same gates.
It's funny that you refer to him as a character. No, but I talked about this on the radio edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed the other night. How I don't understand why so many Christians are so not interested in doing anything or proceeding in a way that Christ himself, because if you're a Christian, it means you're supposed to be a follower of Christ.
You're supposed to hate the sin, love the sinner.
Yes.
There's a lot of hate the sinner out there.
Right. And just to be clear, because I often preach myself, no pun intended, about the importance of avoiding speaking in generalities. So I don't want to break my own rule here and speak too broadly. Obviously, not all Christians are like that.
Of course not.
But a lot of Christians do. They do precisely what Christ said not to do. Christ said, "He among you who has not sinned may cast the first stone." And of course, one of the things that a lot of Christians love to do, their favorite thing in the world to do, is judge. And I finally looked up the quote of Gandhi. Gandhi had said, because I heard different variations of it over the year. Stephen James Blake, God rest his soul, used to quote Gandhi as having said, Christianity is a great idea. I wish someone would try it. I finally looked up the actual quote. I believe, and I don't have it in front of me because I wasn't intending to quote Gandhi, frankly, tonight. But while we're on the subject, Gandhi said, "I love your Christ. I just don't like your Christians. Your Christians are so unlike your Christ." In other words, so many Christians don't do anything that Christ preached about doing. There's the judgment. There's also, and I talked about this Saturday night too, how I don't understand, and again, I want to be very careful about generalizing here, but it seems to me that when you look at the conservative Christian Republican Party, there are so many conservatives who, it seems to me, and by the way, if anyone wants to opine, the chat room is open, and I do have Skype open. IPM Nation is our Skype ID if anyone wants to communicate with us. Or you can text me at 603-344-6491. But it seems to me that one of the tenets, one of the unspoken tenets of conservatism is very little compassion for other human beings. The attitude among conservatives, among conservative Republicans, generally seems to be that if you're having a hard time, if you need help from the government to get by, even in a tough economy, oh well, too bad. We're not going to let you leech off the system. That's why Republicans, they vote against extending unemployment benefits. They're very, very much opposed to welfare. One of the things that I've always found, speaking of unemployment, and I've said this many times on the show, so I may be repeating myself for some of you, but I've always found great irony in Republicans who collect unemployment. It's actually funny to me because if you're a Republican, and I know people personally who fall into this category, and forgive me if any of you specifically who I'm referring to are watching this, but I personally know Republicans who consider themselves diehard, committed conservative Republicans who, through no fault of their own, during the Great Recession, have fallen on hard times and have had to collect unemployment. And don't get me wrong, I don't take any joy in seeing anyone have a hard time, but I always find it ironic and kind of humorous in an ironic way that these people, if you're a Republican and you are a diehard, committed conservative Republican, and in the wake of that you're also collecting unemployment, then you're probably completely oblivious to the fact that you belong to and openly support a political party that hates you. Mm-hmm. Because so many Republicans look at anyone who is in any way using government services, whether it be unemployment insurance or welfare or whatever it may be. The attitude of many Republicans and many conservatives is that if you are in any way using these services, that you are a leech and a loser and a drag on society, and that you just generally suck as a person and as an American. That's the attitude. So when I see Republicans collecting unemployment, again, I take no joy in anyone's difficulty, and I consider myself extremely fortunate that I've never been in that situation. But I do look at people like that, Republicans in that situation, and I wonder silently, because I run my mouth on this show, and part of why the show is called Unleashed is because when this show is on, I say whatever I think. But in my private, personal, day-to-day life, I don't go out of my way to start arguments and lose friends. But I do look at these people, and I think, I don't say it out loud, but I think it, wow, you are quite the hypocrite.
That's the word I had.
Yes, and completely oblivious to the fact that you openly support a political party that actually hates you. Your own party hates you, and it's kind of funny. Again, it's not funny that they're having a hard time and they need help, but it is funny that they're oblivious to the own irony of their situation, and they're never going to get it, and that's fine. But
Ronnie was talking the other day and saying, trying to tell, as he speaks on his bus tour, which he just completed yesterday, that Americans have lost at least 50-55% of their wealth. But you ask any economist, and they'll tell you that 40% of that is from housing. Yeah. And housing has not, it hit bottom and it's just starting to come up. Yeah. The other 10 to 15% that's missing are the stocks, and they're slowly coming back around. So I look at it this way. And you and I are probably considered just common folks. But we're not so stupid, We know that every 10 years there's normally a recession. Pretty much every generation. Sure, yeah. Some are small, some are larger. This one we just had in the last few years is the biggest since the Depression. There's nothing else to compare other than the Depression, which tells me as a common person that if I lose $50, I can regain that easy. But if I lose $50,000, it can kill me. Right, right. That's where the difference is. So for people who think, some party people who think that they can do better and recover overnight, it ain't going to happen. Right. Look what's happened to Europe. Well, absolutely. They're going back under for a second time. And it's very scary. By the way, Glenn, and this isn't to be argumentative, because I want to challenge, and I'm sure everyone will disagree with me on this, and I'm not necessarily, I'm just putting this out there. I'm not putting any force behind this argument. It's not an argument, a counter-argument to anything that you said. It's more, but I just want to challenge something. Is this, the Great Recession, as we have come to call it, is it truly the most severe recession since the Great Depression, or is that hype? And here's what I mean by that question. It seems to have had, I guess we think of it as the greatest economic recession since the Great Depression because of the widespread economic impact that it had and the length of it, and ultimately the sluggishness of the recovery that has occurred after the recession. The one thing I challenge, though, is if you look at data, I guess it ultimately depends on what indicators you're using. If you look at economic data from the recession that we went through at the end of the 1970s into the early 1980s, so at the end of the Carter administration, into the first couple of years of the Reagan administration, unemployment actually got up
to 12.5%.
That's correct.
Now, if you measure it, again, this is, and I'm no expert and I'm not an economist, but if you, for the moment, just put aside every other indicator, every other economic indicator that you have, and look strictly at how many people were working at, or how many people were out of work, if you look strictly at the unemployment rate, during the Great Recession, we topped out at what, 10.1 maybe? Just barely over 10
on the average, but some states had 11 and 14.
But nationally, I think the average was about 10%. Maybe 10.1, 10.2 at its worst. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not attempting to minimize that at all. That is horrendous. But it was even worse during the Carter-Reagan recession.
I think the difference is
12.5.
The difference is, Matt, is that when that happened in the Carter-Reagan administrations during that time, the housing market had not bottomed up as it did now, and this is what makes it worse. And what makes it even worse is now that it's been proven that it is the people who make money and create greed and created so much greed that put us into this situation. And then when we bailed them out, like the big banks, we were promised that solutions were going to be sought, that this would never happen again. And just look at J.P. Morgan.
Yeah.
$2 to $3 billion lost. And they don't understand why. Well, it's understood. When you pay a CEO some 30 to 40 times more than a regular employee, and they don't count for accountability. Of course. And then when you bail them out, they take some of that bailout money and they reward the people who actually created the situation.
Well, the reality is at that level, there is no accountability, because when you're at that level, when you're a CEO and you're raking in these millions of dollars, look, you have two options. You can, when you take risks, when you take financial risks and you make these decisions, there's two potential outcomes. You could succeed. The risk could pay off. It could go well. And you've made even more money. You're going to bonus. You've raked in even more money. Or it could go badly. And what happens when you roll the dice and it doesn't pan out? It doesn't pan out. You haven't lost anything. You're not getting that extra bonus you might have gotten if it had panned out, but you're still making your multi-million-dollar salary. So there's no incentive for risk management, really. You might as well roll the dice. You know, heads you win, tails
it's not your dice to roll. It's somebody else's money.
Exactly. But if you're the CEO of a major bank or corporation, you don't have to look at it that way, because no matter what happens, you're going to be fine.
And to think today that corporations can give up to $10 million in their primary and an additional $10 million in the general, that's $20 million to a candidate. Corporations don't vote, people do. Now, there are people who run corporations, but as a human, as one voter, you're not allowed to give that much money. It's destroying our democracy. Or if some people who claim that it's not a democracy, it's a republic, then it is definitely destroying our republic.
Oh, absolutely. Well, you know who agrees, Glenn, and that runs perfectly into one of the things I wanted to talk about was Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura is a personal hero of mine for a few reasons. My hero worship of Jesse Ventura started when I was a kid, actually. I remember as a kid, I loved, from a very young age, actually, I loved watching Saturday Night Live on Saturday nights at 11:30 on NBC. And I remember when wrestling had first started to get kind of big, and in the early 80s, and I remember seeing an ad on NBC for something called Saturday Night's Main Event, and it was a special, a wrestling special that was going to be on that upcoming Saturday in place of Saturday Night Live, and it was and I had read something about it in TV Guide. It's funny, I watch very little television now, but as a kid, like a lot of kids, I was a television addict. And I'd read that Saturday Night's Main Event was going to be on once a month in place of Saturday Night Live. For whatever reason, it ended up becoming more like once every 2 months. But I remember reading that, and then I remembered seeing the commercial for it, and I was so disappointed because I loved SNL. And I didn't care anything about wrestling. I remember saying to my dad, I was like, oh, that sucks. And but because I was up, I remember I was spending the night at a friend, Billy Zappia. He was my best friend when I was a little kid. And I was spending the night at his house, and he had turned on the television, even though SNL wasn't on. So he turns it on, and Saturday night's main event comes on. And I had no interest in wrestling at all. And I was really frustrated and annoyed that SNL wasn't going to be on. But there it was, and I got hooked.
You did, huh?
I got hooked into watching it, and I actually fell in love with it. And
you've been watching it ever since.
Yeah, I still watch it today, not religiously, but I still kind of pay attention to it. Some people make fun of me for it, but I don't care. We all have stupid stuff we like. So anyway, one of the commentators on Saturday night's main event was Jesse the Body Ventura. He at that point he was a wrestler, but he had retired from the ring because of injuries. So he was now strictly a commentator, and he was the bad guy commentator. Vince McMahon was the good guy commentator, for lack of better explanation. So, and Jesse was very funny, and even though he was technically a bad guy, a lot of fans loved him, and I grew to love him as well. And so I've been a fan of Jesse Ventura ever since I was a little kid watching wrestling.
Of course, he became governor of Minnesota as an independent. Yes,
he eventually left wrestling completely, went into politics. First, he was the mayor of, he became the mayor of Brooklyn Park, Minnesota. He eventually went on to run for governor as an independent, and
won.
Served one, yes, and won in what some people would think, some people would call an upset. The bat phone is ringing. There's trouble somewhere in the city. Let's find out.
When the examiner may help you. You're live on the air.
There's trouble somewhere.
Hello? Hello? Just don't say all and then hang up.
Oh, well.
They're on the air. They don't want to say anything.
Right,
all.
Right.
Then don't call me.
Either that or it was a fan of ours who's intimidated by us, and I understand.
Oh, well.
I do. So anyway, so then he went on to become governor of Minnesota as an independent. Since leaving office, he's written several books, etc. So Jesse is very, very outspoken. He has a show on, I think it's on Court TV or whatever it is now. I don't think it's called Court TV anymore. I've never seen the show. Conspiracy Theory is the name of the show. He's big into his conspiracy theories. He's written several books.
Is that on True TV or something like that?
That's what it is, True TV, yes. It used to be Court TV at one time. So Jesse is very outspoken, and he's very much an advocate of independence. He despises both the Democratic and Republican Party.
Oh, he's one of he's one of me.
Yes, and one of me too. So obviously my hero worship of Jesse the Body Ventura, who eventually became Jesse the Governor Ventura, my hero worship of him has only grown over the years. And he said something. And actually, it turns out I had seen this on Piers Morgan. Jesse was a guest on Piers Morgan the other night on CNN. First of all, by the way, as a side note, kudos to Jesse for calling Piers by the correct name, calling him Piers and not Pierce like most people do.
Yeah, I didn't realize that Piers had Pierce ears.
Right, yeah, the guy's name is Piers, but so many people call him Pierce. But
I should not be calling you Connarton. I should be calling you Connarton.
Right, Connarton is not my name. Connarton is the correct way, or Connarton, which was kind of my nickname in high school. A lot of my friends called me Connarton. Okay. But what did you used to call me? Kahneman. Matt Kahneman.
It was the easy way out, wasn't it?
It was. By the way, Spellcheck likes to try to change my name to Connarton.
Oh, really?
Yes.
But you know,
spell check.
Once you put your name down and you add in dictionary, it don't even recognize it.
Yes, that is true. So Jesse was discussing his new book. I saw him on Piers Morgan. Apparently he's been saying this everywhere. There's various media appearances since then, where he has said something very specific. I'll tell you, great minds think alike, when RJ will laugh, because Jesse said something very specific that I myself have said over and over on this show and in many political conversations I've had with other people. Jesse said that he thinks that politicians should have to wear NASCAR outfits. You know how NASCAR drivers, they have the outfits where you see all the sponsors, Pennzoil and whatever. I don't watch NASCAR. I can't get into it, but
transparent. That's being transparent. The NASCAR people are actually telling you who their supporters are.
Right, because the sponsors are paying for that. So, so they wear their outfits. I mean, I just know because I've seen this on TV. I'm not personally a fan of NASCAR. I mean, to me, it's a bunch of rednecks driving around in a circle. But I'm just being honest. I don't judge. I'm just being honest.
They make a lot of money.
I'm kidding. They're very talented people, and it's a very dangerous sport. I personally can't get into it, so I make fun of it. I'm like most people. I make fun of things I don't understand or can't get into. What can I tell you?
Don't you drive a car?
I do drive a car.
Oh, then I know exactly what your problem is. You can't drive 200 miles an hour like they can on the ring.
No, and I want to. I can't drive 55, that's for sure. Love Sammy Hagar. But anyway, so Jesse said this. He thinks that politicians should have to wear NASCAR outfits where they have on their outfits everyone who is sponsoring them, everyone who owns them, basically. And I love that he said that. And the first time I heard him say it, I was like, oh my God, I've been saying that exact same thing for a few years now. The exact same thought. And I agree. And, Piers, when I saw Jesse on Piers Morgan, Piers kind of laughed it off and said, well, that would never happen. It's ridiculous. But it is true because, as I always say, at least at the federal level, and I don't think this is true, for example, here in New Hampshire, where we do the show, we have what we call a citizen legislature. Gary Hopper, my co-host on Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades, he's a member of the legislature. It's actually the third largest legislative body in the world. The New Hampshire legislature is so large, but it's, they pay $100 a year. And so if you're going to run for the New Hampshire legislature, it's because you really want to do it. It's not a career type thing. So I think these are very good, honest people, with the exception, of course, of DJ Betancourt, who turned out to be a liar and a disgrace. But although I like DJ, I met him once. He seemed like a nice guy. But a little side.
But you can turn it around and you can say that.
I can turn this around and show them that there's Jesse Ventura right there.
You can do that. But I'm talking about the suit, the sponsors. Mm-hmm. Today, because the Supreme Court now allows corporations to fund their own PACs for their candidate, the presidential candidate doesn't have to say, I approve this because it's not his commercial.
That's right.
Now, the only thing about that is it's come back to haunt them because some of these PACs are saying things that they want nothing to do with.
Right.
So, you have to watch out when you cry wolf. But the point is that a lot of money is being spent on something needless, on half-truths, when we have severe problems in this country and those millions and billions of dollars should be spent on our issues.
Right, absolutely. When you, and again, I'm for long-time listeners or viewers of the show, I'm repeating myself here, but at the federal level, and at the state level in some instances too, maybe not in New Hampshire, I like to think not, but in a lot of cases, when you vote for whoever it is you're voting for, you're naive and a bit silly, no offense, if you vote with the mindset of, I'm going to vote for this person because this person I think really shares my values and shares my ideological viewpoint. And I agree with this person on this and this, and I think they're the right person for the job, and I think they're good, honest. No, what you are voting for, and by the way, they may be a good, honest, decent person. I'm not saying they're not necessarily. Well, I think most of them aren't. But what you are literally voting for, is you are voting for whatever group of special interest groups and lobbyists and corporations and whoever else donated to their campaigns. It is legal bribery. All this money, it's given to these campaigns completely unfettered, or the money is spent on advertising through, as Glenn alluded to, the super PACs. These people are not representing you and me. They are representing the people who really run the country. And when I say the people who really run the country, I'm not speaking in conspiratorial terms. I'm not talking about, the Illuminati or whoever.
The 1%.
The 1%. Yes, thank you, Glenn. That is who they represent.
That's the truth.
That is the truth.
So let's be precise.
But here's the other thing that's so frustrating is you almost can't even win if you look at it that way. If you say, okay, well, I need to figure out who donated, and then so at least if I'm not really voting for someone who specifically represents my values and my viewpoints, I can at least say, okay, well, I think this group of people is better than that group of people, so I'll vote for whoever represents this group of people. That doesn't even work because...
Are you talking about voting for the least of the two evils?
Well, what I'm really talking about is people don't always realize that a lot of times the lobbyists and the special interest groups donate to both parties.
True. For a reason.
They hedge their bets. You know, Big Pharma and Big Oil and who else?
And it seems to be
Wall
working.
Street. They own everybody. It's not just Democrats. It's not just Republicans. They own everybody.
But you know, I was a little bit disturbed tonight when I was watching your show with Gary, the paper grenade. What's it called?
Rock, paper, hand grenades? You were disturbed? Does the grenade frighten you?
Gary made it very clear to you and his guests and the public out there that if he puts on a bill, they say, yeah, we'll pass your bill, but we'll tack on 40 others with it.
Right.
Well, so if you vote for me because you believe in what I want to do, and all of a sudden to pass what I want to do, I got to vote for 39 other bills.
Yes.
That's the same way as lobbyists saying you're in my pocket. Either you do it my way, you ain't gonna get your bill passed. That's best for the people.
Right.
And I was kind of disturbed by them saying, "Wow, I didn't know they did that."
And that's what goes on at the federal level too. I think
a lot more.
I think they call it an omnibus bill when it's a bill packed with. What is frustrating about that is it forces people to vote for things. And Gary did give an example. It forces people to vote for things that they aren't necessarily in favor of, or vote against things that they may actually be for because they're attached to other legislation.
Well, that's where a lot of that pork comes in.
Yes, exactly.
I can't get what I want from my state, even though it's not necessary. I'll put it in this bill, and if you want this bill, you're gonna have to vote for my pork.
Exactly.
Well, you ain't voting. It's sad.
That's why I believe the president should have the line item veto. I firmly believe that the president of the United States should have the line item veto. And for anyone who doesn't know what that is, that gives the president the power to, when that bill lands on his desk, instead of it being simply he either vetoes it or passes it, he can literally take a pen and say, crossing that out, this money for this, crossing that out.
You could get rid of the pork.
Exactly. The president will never be given the line item veto, however, because why would, Congress has to give the president the line item veto. Nobody ever wants to give up their power.
Of course not.
And if you give someone power and then you say later on, well, we may have overdone it here, you're not getting any of that power back. So I remember George Herbert Walker Bush, Bush 41, I remember him very hard. He was the last president, I think I recall, actually making a really hard push for the line item veto. Obviously, any president would like to have that power, but I think Bush 41 was the last one to really publicly push for it, and I think presidents after him kind of gave up on the idea, recognizing, well, it's a dead issue. It's never, ever going to happen, so no one pushes it anymore. I think it's a great idea. I know there's a counter argument that, well, now you're shifting some power from the congressional branch to the executive branch, and you can't give the executive too much power, and I understand that, but I think in this instance, I would definitely support the line item veto, especially now when we have a Congress who gave the President of the United States through the National Defense Authorization Act. The president now has the ability to order the military to scoop up and retain American citizens on United States soil and hold them indefinitely without due process. Yeah. So this Congress will give the president that power, but they won't give him the line item veto. So very frustrating. But I firmly believe with what Jesse Ventura is saying here. These people should have to wear NASCAR suits so you know who owns them. So you know whose interests they are directly operating in favor of. Because I guarantee you this, it is not yours. And Jesse supports independence. And I myself have made a decision. I will not be voting for Obama. for re-election in November of 2012, nor will I be voting for Mitt Romney. I've made a decision that, I did vote, Glenn, for Buddy Roemer in the New Hampshire primary. Republican, former governor of Louisiana, Buddy Roemer. By the way, the first Republican I've ever voted for. Because even though I'm an independent, I do lean more left than right, if you take the totality of my ideological viewpoints, and therefore I will tend to vote Democrat over Republican, seeing the Democrats as being the lesser, but only slightly the lesser of two evils. I can't support the Republican Party, especially in 2012. But having said that, Buddy Roemer will be probably the last party-affiliated politician that I will ever vote for. I have decided that I'm going to do some research and figure out who is running for as an independent for president. And
I don't think he is he?
No. Buddy Roemer is not. No, but
neither is Ron Paul now.
No, neither, and Ron Paul won't, because he doesn't want to screw things up for his kid. Rand Paul probably has a bright future in the Republican Party. But I need to find someone to vote for in November, and I'm open to suggestions, but it must be an independent. I, like Jesse Ventura, will no longer...
Vote for yourself.
I may end up writing in Jesse Ventura if I have to write somebody in. But
you're giving your vote away. It's like, why are you voting?
See. Okay.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I really do.
Right.
But if you're the only one that votes for this one person, where will that get you? Where will they get the country?
Well, what's the alternative?
The alternative
Should I hold my nose and vote for one of the other two or sit it out?
The alternative is, and it's not an ideal situation, obviously not, because if it was, we wouldn't be doing it. The alternative is you have to vote for the least of the two evils, and that's horrible to say, but that's what you have to do.
That's what I usually do.
Because if you don't, we never move a foot forward. We keep moving backwards. Right now, we're going backwards because if we elect one versus the other, one wants to at least try to move forward, the other wants to go backwards. And are you willing to go backwards? I'm not willing to go backwards.
No. But I cannot. I also have to live with my own conscience. And I've come to the conclusion, I cannot do this week after week where I rail against both parties and talk about how both parties at the federal level are ruining our country.
And they are. I don't argue.
And they are. I cannot continue to do that and then go and implicitly support one of them with my vote. I have to be a part of a movement, an independent movement in this country that may never in my lifetime be any threat in the general election for the presidency. We may never elect an independent president in this country. And even if we do, it may not be the ideal independent president who would be someone who literally doesn't owe anybody any favors. That would be the ideal. That may never happen in my lifetime. But it's got to start somewhere.
And remember that once you become president, you don't rule the country the way you want to rule the country. There are other people there that direct you how to.
Yes.
No matter what party you belong to.
Well, that's very true. And people like to, it's funny, Glenn, this is something that frustrates me, is people tend to, and the economy specifically comes into play here, people like to think of the president as though he is some sort of an emperor who sort of pulls the different levers of the economy and somehow controls everything. And it really doesn't work that way. People have this very sort of hyper-simplified, and I'm not saying this just to defend Obama, because even though as I said, I'm not voting for Obama for a second term or Romney, but I do believe fair is fair. I believe in criticizing those who I believe deserve criticism, regardless of party, regardless of how much I may like them. And there are some things about Obama that I like, and some things I don't. Had McCain won, I'm sure I'd be saying the same things about him. There are some things about him I like and some I don't.
Now that you mentioned McCain, I think we should go there. I remember when Libya, when the president joined the European nation, and we used our military Air Force and Navy, that was our part without putting men and women in harm's way right in the country. And McCain said we don't belong in. But today it's McCain who's saying, why aren't we in Syria?
Right.
There is not a win-win situation in Syria.
Right.
You look at the countries behind it and that surrounds it, they don't really support us.
Right. Well, this is another reason.
So so you can't say you don't want we don't belong in this one, but we belong in that one. I understand that what's happening there is horrible, and I think that as a nation we should join a world, form a nation of the world, and try to do something about it. But just us doing it,
right? But the sick part of it, though, Glenn, is it doesn't. Whether or not it's a good idea ultimately doesn't matter. McCain is just, this is how the game is played in 2012, and it's how it's always been played, but it's never been this bad. Where literally everyone sees everything, or at least speaks about everything through their own ideological prism. Before Obama said, and I will defend Obama on this, because I think he was right on Libya. Before Obama went in, you had all these Republicans saying, these high-profile Republicans in the country, Karl Rove and others saying, and Newt Gingrich saying, why isn't Obama taking us into Libya? We should be there. We should be in there leading. And then we go in. And then they're saying, why did Obama take us into Libya? We shouldn't be there. And then...
they're talking to the both mouths.
Yeah,
both sides of their mouths.
Yes, and then the ultimate objective is achieved. Gaddafi's gone. And then this is where it gets so silly and petty and stupid. And I will defend Obama on this because the Republicans look so ridiculous when they say, but I understand the Rush Limbaugh ditto heads, they just eat this stuff up. When they say, well, it's still a failure on Obama's part because he was leading from behind. We were leading from behind on this. So, yes, we accomplished the objective, but the president doesn't deserve any credit.
But if we would have sent our military there and killed hundreds, if not thousands, of our men and women, then you would have said, "Oh, he's leading from the front."
Exactly, and that's why
can't win.
And that's why it's bullshit. This leading from behind, it's bullshit. Obama played it smart, didn't get our guys killed over there, and we accomplished the objective. He made the right call. He played it smart. Minimal loss of life on our side. He protected our boys and girls in that situation. And you guys on the right, with your bullshit partisan politics, because you cannot give him credit for absolutely anything except Jeb Bush, who actually is intellectually and ideologically honest. You guys won't give him credit for anything. So anything he does, leading from behind. What is leading from behind? That's bullshit, and you know it. But that's the point we've arrived at, Glenn, in 2012. It's so transparent. And don't get me wrong, I'm not just picking on the right. There's plenty of examples too where the left does the same kind of thing, where they won't give anybody on the right any credit for anything just because they're people on the right. And this is the childish, incredibly petty situation that we're in now, where everyone is so polarized and no one works together. There's no moderates left in Congress. None. You have nothing but liberal Democrats and very right-wing conservative Republicans. There are no moderate Republicans. There's no conservative Democrats. They're all gone.
Well, here's another example. Gas, oil. I remember when George Bush was the president and the gas went up to $4. The Democrats say it's the president's fault. And the Republicans said, no, it's not. Well, you know what? It really wasn't. Right. Now, this time around, the president happened to be Democrat, Obama. Gas went up to $4, and it's his fault. Yep. And the Republicans are saying the exact opposite of what they had said 4 years ago. Of course. Now, what's even more important is today, gas is below the $4, and are they giving him credit? Of course not.
No.
It's politics.
No, I'm glad you brought that up, Glenn, because gas prices are the perfect example of how everyone sees everything through their own ideological prism. Right, and everyone sees everything through the ideological prism that suits them, and there is absolutely zero objective reality. If you're a Republican, you say, oh, it's Obama's fault. And if Romney were in office, he'd keep gas prices down.
How will he do that?
And if you're a Democrat, you say, no, it's not Obama's fault. And of course, it's the completely opposite when Bush was in. When Bush was in and gas prices spiked, if you were a Democrat, you would say, oh, it's Bush's fault. If we had a Democrat in office, gas prices would be lower. And if you're a Republican, you would say, no, it's not Bush's fault. It's nobody's fault. And the reality is, Glenn, you're right. The president doesn't control gas prices. He has no control over that. It's not like he has some sort of dial in a desk in the Oval Office where he says, I think today I'll make gas prices higher, and I think today I'll make them lower. The president doesn't control the price of gas. But everyone
Middle East does.
But everyone takes whatever position is politically convenient and suits their own ideological viewpoint that they're so very comfortable with, because God forbid anyone use any objective reality anymore about anything ever. Everything has to be either Republicans right about everything, Democrats wrong about everything, or Democrats right about everything, Republicans wrong about everything. There can be no meeting in the middle. There can be no compromise, because no one is interested in any sort of objective reality. It's if you're on the right, you're just going by whatever Rush Limbaugh or Fox News tells you, and you listen to conservative right-wing radio, and you watch Fox, and that's where you get all your information, and you don't let anything else in. And if you're on the left, you're probably listening to NPR, and you're watching Rachel Maddow at night and MSNBC, and that's where you get all your information. Not that I'm knocking MSNBC. I happen to be a fan of MSNBC, but I'm just saying there's such a tendency now in this country where everyone wants to hear whatever they're comfortable with hearing. People perceive people's own viewpoints and opinions are based on what they already think, and then they just try to consume and cherry pick whatever information is out there that reinforces what they're already comfortable with believing.
In fact, on the gas prices, when the gas was at $4 a gallon, 56 cents per gallon was on just in case we go into war with Iran. It was projected.
Yeah.
Now, also, one of the reasons why gas is going down right now, the demand's not there. Why isn't it there? Because we're in a recession and we can't afford the gas, so we drive less. And what does that do? It sells less gallons of oil, less barrels, and it brings down the demand. So the price is going down, and we're the ones that had that control. We, the people, did that by saying enough was enough. We can't afford your gas. We're not buying as much as we did.
I just got a text message from a viewer who probably would like to remain nameless. He's a very private person, but it is someone I know personally, who says, Joe the plumber said that the Holocaust happened because of gun control. I gotta look this up. Joe the plumber is
Joe the plumber still around?
He's quite the what's his real name?
I forget. He's from Ohio.
Wardetsky or something, and his real first name. I gotta look this up. Joe the plumber, Holocaust. But Joe the plumber doesn't strike me as someone who has any sort of. Here we go. Joe the plumber links. All right, I'll read this. Thank you, unnamed anonymous viewer whose name I won't mention. Let's see. Joe the plumber links deaths of Jews in Nazi Germany, gun control in Ohio campaign video. All right, let's see. This is from the Associated Press, Dateline today. This happened today, 3:13 p.m. in Toledo, Ohio. The Ohio congressional candidate known as Joe the Plumber is running a campaign video in which he suggests that Nazi gun controls contributed to deaths during the Holocaust because Jews didn't have firearms to defend themselves. The ad drew strong rebukes from Democrats and Jewish organizations. In the video, Samuel Wurzenbacher loads a shotgun. That's Joe the plumber, by the way. That's his real name. Loads a shotgun and fires at lemons and tomatoes placed on wooden posts. I don't approve of that. I love tomatoes. He says, quote, in 1939, Germany established gun control. From 1939 to 1945, 6 million Jews and 7 million others, unable to defend themselves, were exterminated. And then he ends the video by saying, I love America. Gun control opponents have long held that Adolf Hitler was able to seize power in Germany in part because of controls on firearms. No, massive oversimplification there. Ohio Democratic Party Chairman Chris Redfern said the video was incredibly offensive. He called on Republicans and Democrats to condemn, quote, the despicable actions of this very desperate man.
Joe the plumber.
Unquote. Joe the plumber, he's a desperate man. Let's see. David A. Harris, president of the National Jewish Democratic Council, says, quote, using the memories of 6 million Jews killed in the Holocaust to make a political point is never appropriate under any circumstances, unquote. I would have to agree.
Yes.
Wurzelbacher also said in the video that gun control laws in Turkey preceded the deaths of 1.5 million Armenians from 1915 to 1917. Obviously, that's why. He defended his statements Wednesday, saying that he did not say that gun control caused the Holocaust. He accused liberals of twisting his words for political gain, by repeating and quoting what he said. Wurzelbacher, running as a Republican in Ohio's 9th District, became known as Joe the Plumber after questioning Barack Obama about his economic policies during the 2008 presidential campaign. Oh, boy. Well, I'll tell you what, if our friend Joe the Plumber is if
around New Hampshire, you'll invite him as a guest.
I would love to have him on. I think if it's his goal to get some publicity here, maybe Goose's campaign a little bit. He's certainly accomplished that. We're talking about him. I didn't expect to be talking about Joe the Plumber. I forgot that he was even running for anything. I'll tell you something funny about Joe the Plumber. I remember a few years ago when he had his newfound fame, somebody hired him to be a journalist and to go cover, I think it was to go to Iraq. It was either Iraq or Afghanistan. Some online news outlet, not as prestigious as QCE News, obviously, hired him to go and be a war correspondent. Which is strange because he had, no history of
correspondent
of journalism at all, and then on top of it, right? So he's actually in an interview. Excuse me. Someone is interviewing him about his impending trip to go overseas to be a war correspondent, and he's talking about how he doesn't think the media has a role in covering these things and shouldn't get too close to. Basically saying, in his sort of uber-patriotic, jingoistic way, that he doesn't think the media should be talking about the war because, I guess, if the media is talking about the war, then it draws negative attention to the war, and which was really, really weird because he was on his way to go play war correspondent, and he's telling a reporter in an interview that, he has concerns about the media covering war. Really weird. He's a weird dude.
And let's not forget that this so-called Iraq War was there for false reasons, and one of them was that we would get cheap oil. Now that we're out of Iraq, we're not getting no cheap oil, are we? What happened to that promise?
Well,
it was a boogie to begin with. It was baloney.
It was. We don't even get cheap bologna, let alone oil. Tell you what, I bought bologna the other day. It was pricey.
Really?
And I said to myself, I didn't express this to anyone else because they would have found me insane, but I thought, why'd we invade Iraq if I'm paying this much for bologna?
Well, Iraq aren't the makers of bologna, though. It's a pork.
Oh.
It's a mixture of pork and...
Oh, okay. All right. In that case, I take it back. That's probably Obama's fault.
Of course. According to the Republicans.
Yes.
Now, if it was a Republican president, it would be the Democrats that we'd say that it would be the opposite.
Of course.
They need to stop playing these childish games, and get along, and get the people's work done for what's in our best interest as a country, not the best interest of the special interest. The same thing happens here in the city, if we can go there a minute.
Well, we're already here. We're in Manchester. You mean figuratively. I'm sorry. Yes.
We have an ordinance in the city that every 3 years, if you're a landlord, that your building has to be re-inspected by the building inspectors, and you have to be given a certificate of need to make sure that you're within the codes. If you own a home in the city, a family housing unit, and you want to expand or do something, they have to go and investigate and do the inspection and make sure you follow the codes before they give you a certificate or your permits. Well, in our city, we've had these portable classrooms now. Some of them are 12 and 15 years old, and with the classrooms came, of course, the porches, or they call them decks. Now, for 12, 15 years, not once has the city inspected them. Now they're falling, and people are getting hurt, and they're saying, I wonder how that happened. It happened because the leaders of our city do not enforce their own rules that they create on we the people. We must maintain and follow the rules, but it doesn't abide to the city property. Shame on them.
Yes.
Because we are self-insured. So if anybody who gets hurt decides to sue the city, who gets to pay that suit? We, the taxpayer.
It's not right.
It's not right.
Hey,
again, two cities, as we have two Americas. But I will never forget what John Edwards, he created those two Americas, didn't he? Do you remember?
Well,
he had a wife and a sweetheart, mistress. Yeah, he had two Americas, all right.
You know what I don't. I'll just say this before we begin to wrap up. You know what I don't get about John Edwards?
What's that?
Okay, so he
got away with it.
He took he takes this enormous risk having an affair on his wife, cheating on his wife with Rielle Hunter. What I don't get is, have you looked at a picture of Rielle Hunter? She's not that hot.
No, but you know what's even worse is that for the first year, when his daughter was first born, it wasn't his. He denied his own child for political reasons. Now, how am I going to vote for someone for political reasons? I'm going to deny my own child?
He's a scumbag. He's
that's
just
politics for you.
Just like the rest.
He's not the only one. No, that's the sad part.
He's just like the rest, and he's part of the 1%. He doesn't know. He doesn't know anything about two Americas.
Of course he is.
Hey, really quickly before we wrap up,
we didn't get a chance to go on immigration. Maybe next week.
Do you want to hit that quickly?
If you want to.
Let's see.
There's a lot of farce out there about it.
Well, I can read this article really quick. This is the newest thing. This article titled "GOP Doubts Legality of Obama Administration's Immigration Policy and Mounts Opposition." This is from FoxNews.com. And before you say, oh, it's from Fox, in fairness, the website tends to be more, I don't know, less full of bullshit. So let's just see what this says.
Just a little bit of bullshit, right?
Humor me. The website tends to be a little more responsible, but this is the newest article that's come up. So Republican lawmakers aren't just uneasy about the Obama administration's move to grant a reprieve to thousands of illegal immigrants who came here as children. Several say they're not even sure it's legal, which is weird. I wonder if they thought that when Reagan did it. Though members of both parties have expressed an interest in crafting legislation to potentially let young illegal immigrants stay in the U.S., Republicans took exception to the Department of Homeland Security's announcement last Friday, accusing the administration of making an end run around Congress. GOP officials are increasingly questioning the president's legal authority for the move. 20 Republican senators fired off a letter to President Obama on Tuesday asking a string of questions about the legal basis for the policy change. Chuck Grassley, senator from Iowa, Republican, and others wrote, quote, "Not only do we question your legal authority to act unilaterally in this regard, we are frustrated that you have intentionally bypassed Congress and the American people," unquote. That's the only way Obama can do anything.
Well, you should stop right there. Last December, the DREAM Act, which is part of this.
Yes.
The Republicans favored the DREAM Act. Their plan is not to pass it until the new president comes in so that they can have it passed. Because if it passes now, it would give the president something to go on.
Absolutely.
So we have a Congress today that has in their head that they will do everything they can to destroy this country as long as it guarantees for them that this president doesn't have a second term. And one more time, I'll remind these Republicans, that's not why we elected you to office. That's our choice as voters to decide who becomes president. If we choose a Republican, we've chosen it.
Right.
If we choose the Democrat or the Independent, it's our choice.
That's right, yes.
And so shame on them. So now the president did exactly what needed to be done, and they're at all about it, saying, what are we going to do? Even Romney, he can't even answer the question from the reporters. If you become president, will you repeal that? Or will you actually pass the DREAM Act? Can't answer.
Right.
Of course you can't answer.
I won't finish the article. It's all just because the whole thing is just Republicans complaining
It's
about
getting
it.
baloney now, huh?
But yeah, but it's just quoting them.
All right, we need to close anyway. It's past 9 o'clock.
It is 9:02 p.m. here in the Eastern Time Zone, so we're going to wrap up. Thanks, everybody. By the way, later tonight, please look for Matt Connarton Unleashed, the Express Edition. I meant to have it up this morning, actually, and just didn't work out. So I'll probably discuss the immigration issue a bit more on the Express Edition, which will be up in a couple hours. The Express Edition, of course, 30 minutes or less. Delivery always free. Thank you for joining me for the television edition here every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern at the QCEnews.com studio. Thank you, Glenn R.J. Willett, as always.
And don't forget to watch us this Friday.
Yes.
Where we'll be celebrating our 8th month on the air as QCE News Media.
We grow up so fast.
I know, we're crawling now. We'll be walking pretty soon.
Yes, that's right. You got to crawl before you can walk.
That's what they say.
That's who is they? I'd like to know who they are. Maybe I'm not meant to know.
Maybe you're not.
All right, so I guess
we'll... So enjoy the heat till then.
I love the heat, yes. All right.
Start sweating.
I got to stall till you sign us off.
All right, I will go sign us off.
Glenn is going to go sign us off. He's also our engineer, so he has to actually
click the mouse, everything around
click the mouse and take us off the air. That's right. That's right. You're pretty handy, Glenn R.J. Willett, just like Joe the plumber, who's not a real plumber, by the way. Sorry about that. Anyway, thanks again, everybody.